The following is an Operation Podcast production.
I've got to learn more. I've got to do more therapy. I've got to read more. And I thought it was all this doing, that if I could just do the right things. And then what I started to do was I learned a very, really dangerous coping mechanism where I just started to live two lives. And then what happened was I really got out of the obsession with my body, and I got really obsessed with that spiritual aspect of really getting to know my soul. What am I doing all this for? I mean, the podcast, the book, the coaching, literally I would work all day and create content and do all these great things and help people in business and help people with coaching. And I'm like, but is this it?
Are you ready for a wild ride? I'm Alexis Artin, and I invite you to strap in because this is more than a podcast. This is Look at Me Now. Hi, everybody. This is a really special episode of Look at Me Now. So special, in fact, that we are doing it remote because that is how we are getting this incredible individual to sit down with us today. I have Yedda Stancil with me. And she is a secret weapon. She is one of the most remarkable women who can really help empower people in a very compassionate way to be a high performer. And that is a rare skill set to find blended into an individual. And it's something that's really close to my heart because that's a lot of the work that I do. And I find it such a unique and special and valuable offering. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Yetta, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I love to talk. It's one of my favorite things to do in the world. And I don't know if I've ever said no when someone like you or Chase or anyone else that I've worked with in this atmosphere and stratosphere of success reaches out and says, hey, do you want to talk about? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. And so I'm just really thrilled to be here today and to meet you as well. And all your listeners.
Same. Yes. Oh my gosh. So she just gave a shout out to Chase. And for those of you who do not know, Chase is the producer of my podcast. And behind the scenes, we call him the Pod Daddy.
Oh.
Because he is the most phenomenal podcast producer. Mm-hmm. And not only is he brilliant at the actual production side of things, meaning the logistics and the technological issues and things like that, but also at putting people together.
Yeah.
And so Yetta and Chase have a wonderful relationship and shared history. And he was the one who suggested that we have this conversation. So way to go, Chase.
Yeah. And he's never wrong, ever. I
Never.
can honestly say that to you. He's never wrong. And I can remember when this idea of him even starting his own podcast was just a conversation and a coaching session with me. So to see, you just said your show, Look at Me Now. I mean, that's such a great phrase, look at me now. And there's so many people who have walked through all kinds of opportunities and doors in life. And now I love that saying, look at me now. And I really
Thank
do
you
think
so much.
that's a great title.
The title really embodies the idea of flipping that phrase on its head in terms of not an external gaze based look at me now, which so many people relate to it as, right? As look at all you people who wounded me, all you people who didn't believe in me. Look at me now. It's less of a exacted revenge title than it is the ability to look at oneself with appreciation and validation and acknowledgement to say, wow, you are one resilient human being. And I am seeing you and I am so proud of you. Whatever you have accomplished, haven't accomplished, you're amazing just as you are.
I love that. Yeah. So it's a wonderful phrase. Look at me now. Yeah.
Thank you. So the way that we work on this podcast, as a refresher for anybody who's listening, is we like to look at the past and see what shaped who you are as a human being, who you are, not just oriented in your career space, but in this well-rounded wheel of your life, right? But so often in our career space, I always say our mess becomes our message. And so looking at, in your Look at Me Now story, what the timeline was of all of the events that strategically and divinely orchestrated led you to where you are now, and then looking at the now, and then facing forward on the timeline and looking at the future. And then ending with a little special question that I like to ask everybody. But starting in the beginning, I would love to know. Tell me your roots. Tell me,
for your listeners, I'll try to give you all the version that we could fit in the amount of time for the show. And actually right here behind me, I keep a stock of books. And so my entire timeline ended up being written in a book in great detail. I never intended to do this. And so when I went through my own breakdown that led to my own breakthrough about a decade ago, the book was a result of doing that catharsis, and that's a saying that I learned along the way, with that suffering without catharsis is wasted pain. And I'd spent a lot of life in suffering. And so the catharsis for me to go back and say, what's my story? And I was doing a certification in narrative coaching at the time, and I was just really fascinated by human stories. We all have a story. Nobody's story is the same, just like nobody's DNA is the same. And so as I did that look back, wondering, like, who am I? What am I doing with my life? Where am I going? And I never really understood, because we don't talk about this. We don't teach it in school, to really understand our circumstances and our story, not to keep us as a victim, but to allow us the ability, like you said, to empower ourselves to say, well, the wounding becomes the wisdom. You don't have to stay in the wounding. And like you said a minute ago about the Look at Me Now isn't like, for me back then, it would have been a backflip out the window, throwing hand grenades with, 2 middle fingers up in the air and a machine gun, in the process of, trying to just hurt everybody in my path. And so when I think of Look at Me Now, it was because I looked back at that story and said, not just with victimization, but with kindness and compassion, like who was I? Where did life start? What was all of that? And learning to reframe that story in a way that would help me to learn to love and accept myself for exactly who I really am. And so in the book, it gets into really gritty detail, but I can tell you in the beginning, I grew up, my mom was 17 years old. She was 7 months pregnant, barefoot on the back of a motorcycle on her way to the Justice of the Peace to marry my dad. He was early 20s. He was, 6'3", tall, dark, handsome. I mean, his picture's in the book, and every photo I see of him at that age was just this brooding, morose. He drank, he did drugs, he rode with bikers, and we just grew up in a really poor side of town here in Richmond, Virginia. And I didn't have my first pair of shoes till I was 2. And they lived in government subsidized housing. I mean, it was just, in the book opens that way, and it was full throttle, literally from the moment of my conception all the way through my early childhood. And I just didn't realize, I never knew that energy and those people and those experiences totally programmed my entire psyche. And so this survivor mentality, and, this young rebellious teenager, my mom getting married to another guy, and he was a former Marine and very disciplinary, and he was the other end of the spectrum. And I just started realizing that these stories of these experiences in my childhood, really, they shaped this very rebellious, wild, reckless teenager who, and I say this a lot of times, some people will ask me, when you were little, did you ever, dream about who you were going to be when you grew up, or what you were going to do, or get married? And I never dreamed. I never, ever once in my life thought about a job, a husband, a child, a career, a normal life, because to me, what I had seen my whole life was just survive. And if you could rip people off in the process to get over on them or get ahead, do it. Just anything that could, deceit, all of it was just the norm. And so it wasn't until I met my husband, he's my ex-husband now, but I was married to him for 20 years. It wasn't until I met him, and I was almost 21. I was 20 when I met him, that I got a glimpse into another person's family or life. And I was like, oh, like your mom's normal, and she takes care of people, and she cooks dinner, does all these loving, nurturing things. And so for me, just to kind of give a big brushstroke across that, childhood was very dysfunctional. But to me, because it was what I knew, and I'm one of 18 grandkids, and we all lived in various versions of this, it just seemed normal. And I'll never forget when I went on a date with my husband, and he looked at me, and I mean, my language was horrible. And he said, there's bedroom talk and bedroom behavior, and that's where I expect it to stay. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And he was like, you are like just off the rails, like your trashy mouth. And I mean, no one had ever talked to me like that. And so for me, getting married was the exit out. But the challenge is through that first, life of, childhood, early adolescence and coming into adulthood, I thought the answer was, well, I just leave one environment and I step into another and it'll all be fine. And it was like holding a beach ball underwater is what I say. And I did it really well for the first several years. And we moved, we had the geographical escape. I had a whole new family. I left everything and everyone behind. And I had a wonderful few years of marriage, but then I had my son, and he just turned 27, so to tell you, it was a while ago. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I parent this human being? I knew I didn't want what happened to me. And then it was like the cracks started to show. And so this ability to look within, even then when he was such a small baby, I went to therapy like we all do. I was like, I don't want things to happen to me that, or happen to my son that happened to me. And there was no real maturity in the conversation. It was just a lot of psychology and a lot of really interesting topics, I guess I would say. But there were no skills of like, well, here's what you do to change the behaviors that you... So what I decided was to go back to school and study behavior change. I thought, well, that's what I'll go study. I was a young mom. I said, I'm very fascinated about this. So I studied all about behavior change, really got into health and fitness as a result, because that's kind of what you did back then. Anyone who wanted to change behavior, it was mostly fitness, nutrition, health, well-being. And the cracks kept showing, but I would try to patch them up. And the years went by, and then I got really involved in business and got really, really successful as an entrepreneur. And the cracks started showing up again. And I thought, well, I've just got to learn more. I've got to learn more. I've got to do more therapy. I've got to read more. And I thought it was all this doing, that if I could just do the right things. And then what I started to do was I learned a very, really, really dangerous coping mechanism where I just started to live two lives. And I would be the wife, the mother, I would do what needed to be done at home. And then there was this other part of me where a lot of other patterned behaviors started to show up around deceit, around coping mechanisms. And I just thought I could keep them two very, very separate. And I did it for a few years, and nobody knew. And the energy, though, that I didn't realize that it was just costing me, especially on a soul level, to be split like that. I would lay in bed at night and look at the ceiling and be like, there's no way out of this. There's no way out. And so my marriage finally, after years of that, living that split lifestyle, everything started to come up, the truths, the deceit, the ways I was coping. And so my marriage ended. My son went off to college, and I was just sitting there, and I was like, what am I doing? I mean, it was a complete and total breakdown. Especially, I think, for women is, in this idea of like, look at me now. And what you said earlier in this inner work, the look at me now was always, oh my gosh, I'm successful. I'm a high school dropout. My mom's a teen, mother. Like, all the odds were against me, but somehow the working hard enough got me enough success that I could say, well, look at me now. Like, I'm over all that.
Yes,
but it was
looking for the nuances. Yes.
Yeah, it was just constant. And so just to bring it up to a little bit to today's time, but in that first couple of years of the separation and the digging deep and the years, I spent a couple of years reading books all day, going to therapy, and then drinking a bottle or two of wine every night, crying myself to sleep, starting over every day. And then I found this meditation teacher. which, was just another happenstance in my life. And I never was someone that would sit in silence. I'm the last person, my ex-husband will tell you, that he would ever think that I would ever know how to be silent or still. And we talked about the process I was going through, and she said, you're just in a very deep letting go, a lifetime of pain. And so in that process of reading, writing, laughing, crying, drinking, sleeping, I started this practice of learning to get quiet and go within. And stuff started shifting. And I couldn't understand why, because there were no words for it. There was no language. There was no therapy. It just started to settle. Mm-hmm. And I got the deepest sense of peace of being able to be present with myself. And then I was like, what is this? And so through that process, that's how I wrote the book, because I wanted to explain, I've got a background in behavior change. I've got this shitty childhood lifestyle, poor parenting, programming. And yet none of what I've done got me the same sense of what I call enoughness, and this ability to see myself as I was enough exactly as I was in that moment. And so then that just led me into some very deep, deep learnings and discoverings of what this whole art of being authentic really means. And I think, our personal development industry is built on a very white male model. And, speaking to another woman, the feminine, the archetypal energy of us as women, we are naturally wired to be able to be with people. Yet we've bought into this lie that we're broken and we've got to do all these things to try to keep up. And the minute I just let that go, I was like, man, I am enough, and so is everybody else. And why isn't anybody talking about that? So that's kind of our overarching, but there's some really good, gritty stories in the book that, your listeners may like, they may not, but I decided I would just do I was like, let's open the kimono. Let's go.
Let's go. I love to open the kimono. I mean, I think your story holds so much relatability for people and harbors so much wisdom that people can dip into, because first of all, the part of you that grew up with whatever your personal brand of dysfunction was, right? In your dysfunctional family system or your constellation, there is a relatability to that, because no parent is perfect. I mean, I'm parenting a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, and here I'm this coach and this empowerment expert, and I'm an embodiment expert and all of these things. And I still every day have to question my parenting tactics.
Yeah.
And I seriously sometimes wonder, like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this well? Right. Having to use my tools on myself to regulate myself around my own parenting. But everybody can relate to, in one shape or another. Obviously, it's on a spectrum of the degrees of severity of the dysfunction, but everybody can relate to needing to organize how they're going to self-identify based on their upbringing when they get to a certain age, and when and if they choose to step into full agency of the choices that they get to make about who they really want to be, who they actually are, and being authentic about who they actually are. And with women, when you spoke of, I was living my life as the perfect housewife, whatever version of that you were, right? And then this other life that you were living in the shadows of that. And it's this double bind. I think Kasia Urbaniak talks about this, but the double bind that women get into of the good girl and the, quote unquote, bad girl or not so good girl, and how pervasive that is in our society, the expectation of women. Yeah. And that's super tangible and relatable to so many people. And breaking free of those molds and the shapes that we are supposed to take or afraid to take or afraid not to take. It's so loaded.
Yeah.
And then to get to a point where you have this breakdown. And so many people would judge having a nervous breakdown, right? There would be some shame attached to it. And I always say to people, you're more resourceful than you'll ever know. And it's about not judging the resources. It's about not judging the tools, right? And so sometimes when I ask people, like, what's the worst thing that could happen that you wouldn't have a resource to come back from? And they say, well, if I had a nervous breakdown. And I say, but that is the resource. That is the tool.
Yeah.
Why are you judging it?
Yeah. And I would say the word I had never really learned until I went through that was post-traumatic growth. We talk about, PTSD, that, this post-traumatic stress. The truth is, when you let something completely break, there is this opportunity in the field of psychology, and they call it the post-traumatic growth. And so there's this, and it took a deep breaking for me to break these, generational bondages, the societal norms. I literally left everything and everyone behind that was dysfunctional. And it wasn't my plan. Maybe unconsciously it was, maybe spiritually it was, but I would have told you there's no way. There's no way I would have said, yeah, that sounds like a really great plan and a great way for us to go about doing this. Let's do it. And so for me, this ability, when I look back and I think about the tools, there was nobody to call on other than me. And then whatever spiritual practices and energy I was experiencing and cultivating in that dark night of the soul, in that depth of going to the bottom of myself and going, nobody's coming.
Nobody's coming to save me. It really is. It's between you and you. You came in alone, you're going out alone. And the only person that's living inside of your skin 24/7, 365 is you. So you've got to be the one who,
and nobody
drinks the water, not just be led to it.
And we're not taught that. I spent thousands of dollars in personal development, and I was very successful in my career, and I was doing personal development as a coach, as a consultant, as an entrepreneur. And I thought, wait a minute, not one time did somebody come along and say, this is the path that you need to go down. And so this idea of I was going to be the greatest love of my own life was just such a jarring. I thought, what? Wait a minute. No, I got picked. The guy came along, he picked me. We got married. We had the kid. We had the house with the white picket fence. Like, we had it all. Why didn't it work? And this idea all of a sudden to go, oh, I'm supposed to be my greatest friend, my greatest ally, my greatest lover, my greatest confidant, my greatest cheerleader. Like, all these great things reside inside of me. I felt like I'd been duped and lied to my entire life. Like, I just drank somebody's Kool-Aid to disempower me. And
I think that's one of the great lies that we all, have to face up to at one point or another, which is like our fulfillment just doesn't live outside of us. And if you're trying to outsource your fulfillment, you're going to continually feel empty. And that's why, I worked in the entertainment industry for a long time before I worked in the personal development wellness space. And I worked with, the premier of celebrities. And there was no amount of fame or fortune or lovers or whatever that filled the voids that these people were hoping.
Well, I don't know. Fill. I'm kind of holding out hope that maybe if I ever ran into Brad Pitt, there might be an exception to that rule for me.
There's always an exception to the rule.
Rob Lowe too. I grew up with him as my heartthrob. So I'm just saying I still secretly have a little bit of hope that maybe, but no, you're right. It is true. Everybody is a person. We're all people. And glorifying it and making it look special, or, everyone's got their stuff and this authenticity.
Yes.
And even Brene Brown, when I was in this deep, deep work, and I quote her in the book and all these, thought leaders, I remember, but she's still missing something, because this whole idea of belonging was really hitting me the wrong way. And now, of course, years later, she's come out and said, I got it wrong. The research didn't go far enough. You got to learn to belong to yourself first. And I remember thinking that, like, I don't want to go join another group, and I don't want to join another book club or join another clique, or I want to know what it's like to just be me and give myself permission that I can do what I want and what I don't want, but I get to call those shots and I get to decide. And I'm not always worried about what my hair looks like and how much makeup I've got and what my ideal weight is. And I mean, I did that. It was exhausting.
I mean, and that's such an important message for people to hear. And it's rooted in something that I talk about a lot. It's called the soul body paradox. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but basically the essence of this paradox is there's our human side, which is very finite and very separate, right? Finite in the length of time. We have a beginning date and an end date. Finite in the space that we can physically expand into, right? And that limited nature of us, that animal nature of us, is always having to assess threat.
Yep.
It's always looking for, survival and thrival and looking for any threat to that versus where am I going to get my sustenance and stay safe, right? And then there's that's the matter of us, but the energy of us, right? Our soul, which acronym, source of unconditional love, the energetic state of us. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just changes form. So it's this idea of it being infinite as opposed to finite, it being non-separate, whereas the body is separate, it not really understanding upper limits and fear because it's infinite. It's not facing any threat or destruction. It's just going to go on and on and on and on, right? So it's these opposing parts of us that are coexisting. And sometimes we're imbalanced. We get too far into our human nature, our animal nature, our where is the threat nature, than we are in our bringing our soul, our source of unconditional love and certainty to the energy of certainty, to the matter of a fact that we are having to navigate both of those things, right? Yeah. The cognitive dissonance between both of those things in an embodied way. And it is going, whether or not I have makeup on, whether or not I'm presenting a certain way, whether or not I'm living up to the expectations in the outside world, I am, no matter what I've done or not done, worthy of love. I don't need to belong to anybody else's idea.
Exactly. And I don't have to look like you or act like you or talk like you to be accepted and approved by you.
To get that unconditional love, because I am unconditional love when I choose to embody that energy.
And you said something that was really that's interesting, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I never meant to write a book. I was writing a coaching manual talking about how silence and stillness and mindfulness and meditation were actually the bridge between behavior change and really rewiring and rewinding and kind of getting rid of some deep-seated limiting beliefs. And the woman that I got on the phone every week with her, and I would just tell her, okay, now I say this to a client, and then I do that. And I really wanted a foundational manual, if you will, that I could take clients through, whether they did it in 12 months, 12 days, 12 weeks. But I knew, I was like, gosh, I'm saying the kind of the same educational stuff about thinking, feeling, behaving, and all this, stuff. And it was great. I met this woman. She had a degree in oral storytelling, and she goes, I just get on the phone with you and you talk. And I'm passionate about dictation, and I just write the whole thing for you. And I was like, stop it. This sounds great. This is exactly what I want. When we were done, she said, oh, gosh, you have such interesting stories. I think we should also do your life story. So I thought, oh, cool. You're going to do my coaching manual, put all this science and spirituality and cool stuff together of like deep change. And then we're going to also have a second book, which is my story. And I don't know, maybe I'll like leave it in the safe deposit box for my son, like when it's all said and done. Like that was it. And then we got on the phone for a year. And then at the end of the year, she sent me a manuscript, and it was the December right before COVID. And it was a 250-page Word document. I went and printed it at Kinko's, came home, sat here in this office, and was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to dig in. And I started reading it, and I was like, this is utter and total crap. I threw it across the room. I was like, I can't even believe I wasted all this time and money, because she had married the story with the coaching process. And so it would open up with part of my story, then it would go into science, and then it would end with some spirituality. 10, 11, 12 chapters. And I was like, I don't want anyone to know my story. I didn't want to open the kimono. And I had to sit with it for the entire holiday season. And then I called her back and we got on Zoom and I said, I don't know what this is. And she goes, I do. It's my best work. And I was like, oh my God. And so,
mic drop.
Yeah. And so what you said a minute ago, but this integrative, now I know this integration and this integrative development that I was coming into, that she was helping me come into, was helping me. She goes, people want to hear your story. They want to know what happened, how it happened. And so all of that to come back to this soul and this integration. And so I just thought you kept those things very separate. And so I realized, I did a whole first quarter of my life totally in my body, in every way, using it to manipulate people to get what I wanted, using it to survive shitty, terrible situations, you name it. And I was always physically fit, absolutely perfectly aware of wearing the right clothes, looking exactly perfect. Like everything was my body. And so when this whole kind of breakdown happened, then I started doing what I think a lot of people do once they go to therapy. Then they go to a yoga studio and then they go do meditation. And, they dabble in different theories and people and groups. And I started realizing there's a lot of enlightened people out there, but they're still jerks. They're self-proclaimed, by the way. And I thought those were like the people that had it together. And then once I got behind the curtain, I realized your ego just changed form.
It's rampant. It's rampant. And I the shadow values of wellness are just immense. And it is really something.
It can be really toxic to people who are really suffering, because then all of a sudden, for some reason, in my infinite wisdom, the deepest part of myself, I guess my soul, is I use that language too, said, keep going. Don't rest your head here. Don't rest your head. Keep going, keep going. And I remember days and weeks and months and years of feeling like I was in a desert. And then what happened was I really got out of the obsession with my body, and I got really obsessed with that spiritual aspect of really getting to know my soul, really getting to know me. And though the danger though was, then I remember my sister calling me and going, what has happened to you? And of course, then COVID hit, and I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you don't go anywhere, you don't do anything, you don't talk to anybody. Then I realized I went really deep into the other aspects of me in that deep internal place. And finally, I'd say it was, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, I really started going, okay, so how do the two coexist? And I know it's never exactly 50-50, but we have a body, we are a soul, we have a body. Where in the world do we get permission to learn how to move in and out of that expansive freedom and then constrict back down to, okay, but I'm here and then this is happening. And so that led me into some deeper conversation. I just wrote my second book called Enough Already, which was about this deeper in space, and you use the word embodiment. What do you do to really cultivate enoughness? It's not just a book. It's not a lecture. It's a way of beingness, of allowing that soul and that body to integrate and dance. And I find that fascinating. And
well, it's funny that you say that, because I just launched after I was in female empowerment space for the better part of a decade, and I was the creative director at a female empowerment movement company. In the last 4 years, I've spent in research and development launching something called Soul Sway Practice that teaches exactly that. It really puts the practitioner in the seat of being the expert of their own experience, the creator of their own experience, and how to embody, to be in their bodies, inhabit their bodies without inhibition, from a place of bringing your soul, your source of unconditional love, to your body.
Yeah.
Because our bodies hold our stories, and our bodies are, I always say, like, our soul is our why and our body is our how, and they have to partner with one another. And your body is your number one feedback system for your soul. It is going to tell you if you're on mission, if you're on telos and purpose and mission and path, purpose, and not. That's what symptoms are all about. in the
Exactly.
body and dis-ease in the body. So there is a real method to the madness, if you will, of how do we align ourselves, soul to skin, to be in our authenticity, inward first, and then feeling enough agency and enough safety in that space to be the same person externally.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, and it's one thing I talk about, I remember saying to somebody, look, if authenticity means I can't do Botox anymore and I got to take out my implants and I can't wear nice clothes and I got to like start, wearing, burlap. And I'm like, I'm not interested in that. Like, I mean, I need to find middle of the road. Maybe at some point I will. And I have days, where I like to be a little bit more natural. Today's one of them with my curly hair and just kind of lounging at home. I thought, I don't want to have to give it all up. I want a choice. And I want days where I can put all of the glitter and glam on, but then I want days where I can learn to take that off. And I think as women, as a gender, we compete so much with each other just by the sheer nature of the way Hollywood raised us with all the princess stories and the prince is going to pick you. And all of a sudden now I'm unconsciously, constantly taught all the time until someone picks me. I got to make sure I get picked and I got to get picked over you getting picked because if I don't get picked, what does that mean? And that's a whole nother show we can go into. And I think it really damaged.
That's the show on the patriarchy. And having studied that for a very long time, it is so intricately woven into the fabric of our society. We can't actually, anybody who thinks that they can separate themselves from it, I think is disillusioned.
No. And so this idea of authenticity and an empowerment, it's a fascinating movement. And I love the work, that I do with the clients in the way that I do. But I never really thought about my story and all of the things I had learned about using them to do anything. I just thought, well, yeah, that's just my story. And, and here I am just doing all these other things. And so for the idea for me to keep going, that was just something I kept hearing, keep going. And so to be able to wake up today and I'm still, even though I do this for a living, I'm still figuring it out. And I still have moments.
We all are. I say the day that we are Buddha sitting in mudra pose all day and enlightened, we will be dead.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember...
That's the day we die. Hey fam, it's me, Alexis. Quick pause to shout out something that's not just a sponsor. It's my creation, Soul Sway Practice. This is the evolution of fitness. Think of it like microdosing your own neurochemicals, dopamine, serotonin, all the good stuff. No substances required. Soul Sway takes what's dulled and deadened and brings it back to life. It's multi-dimensional self-care, movement, mindfulness, meditation that lets you actually hear yourself again because our lives are loud, compartmentalized, draining. This is your time to come back online, set to curated and kick-ass soundtracks and cinematic backdrops that help remove the outside noise to tune into what matters most, you. This is your time, your practice, your life. Let's make it yours. With subscription-based classes, on demand, or courses, design your practice to not only fit, but enhance your life. Go to soulswaypractice.com and use code LAMN50 for 50% off your first month or year. You're welcome.
I remember a teacher of mine during this whole process saying, none of us are enlightened until we're all enlightened. And it really rattled me. And I thought, yeah, that really resonates with me because we're all connected. And so for me to think I have something that you don't is not very kind and considerate. And so this idea of the female movement, the spiritual movement, the empowerment of saying how I got there isn't going to be exactly how you get there. But I can...
Yeah, and I think that, the nature of being human requires certain things that are going to combat enlightenment.
Yes.
They just are. Like, I have to be judgmental or I'll, I think I said this in another podcast recently, or I'll eat a rotten fruit because I won't be able to judge the difference between the fruit that's good for me and the fruit that's bad for me.
Yeah.
Being judgmental serves us or we wouldn't do it. Having the shadow side is necessary.
Yes. And so for me, the biggest thing that I came up with in this whole work and process was, oh, you don't kill the ego. You don't get rid of the ego. The shadow never goes away. But what I learned to do was invite her into all of my life's experiences and use literally the superhero powers of my ego when I needed to, and my shadow when I needed to or wanted to. But I never forget they're there. My soul, though, started to just take up more residency and say, okay, the body and mind are going to duke this out to the last breath. So let me step in and provide some wisdom here.
That's where the agency comes. That's the actual empowerment, right? It's like, it seems like such a big thing to tackle, but it's as simple as joy, personal choice. It comes down to, can I choose in this moment to see more of what's available to me? Yeah. Not just what my ego wants me to see, but you know, what's on the other side of that, what lives on the edges of that.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things for me that I think, you know, that I live with more now that I feel so much better about as a person, when I was married, all my survival skills were at play. I now know that. I look back and I mean, I wasn't the best mom and wife that I could be, and I had great moments. I look back and I go, gosh, you know, I did the best I could given the level of awareness that I was at. And now, you know, being 10 years past the divorce and in relationship with someone new, and I literally did this last night, I caught myself going, look at you, and look at me now. There was this moment where there wasn't really a disagreement because we don't fight. And it's because we have a maturity where he said something and I said, hey, I have a voice in this relationship too, and I'm not okay with that. And that's not something that I'm going to do. And it was just... It was just that simple. I didn't need to sidewind it. I didn't need to throw egg on his face. I didn't need to project my shadow onto him.
You didn't need to suppress it and have it come out later in a
hotel room or with, you know, a group of people out drinking too late at night.
Or on yourself or through disease or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, all of it.
And that's what happens is it goes all different directions. And that empowerment just welled up and I went, yeah, I have a voice. But it was very matter of fact. It was calm and it was kind and considerate and loving for me first and then for him. And he looked at me and he goes, you're right. And I'm okay with doing it the way you want to do. And I go, great. It's my house and that's how I'd like to go forward. And he just very simple, matter of fact, done. And I think, God, 10 years ago, what I would have done and how it would have played out. And that gives us, it's a biofeedback loop to go, look, you did it. You got your needs met, and you did it in a way that inspired someone to want to meet your needs too. And that's amazing.
And I'm going to put a button on that and even say, even if you hadn't gotten the response that you desired, so what? You get the gold star for using your voice, for self-advocating. And so many people miss that step in their lives. They think that if they don't get the response they wanted, oh, I shouldn't have spoken up. Oh, I shouldn't have used my voice. This is why I don't use my voice. That's just further evidence of why I shouldn't, rather than really like congratulating themselves for having the courage. Right. That's where the authenticity, like the rubber meets the road, is I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to mow myself over. I'm not going to flagellate myself for speaking my truth, regardless of the outcome. Wonderful that when people do meet you where you are and honor and respect you using your voice. But it's going to take a lot of us women continuing to meet adversity when we use our voice and continuing to do it anyway to really shift to a partnership model.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really where I hope that we're moving towards as a world. We see it, you know, teed up potentially on the political stage right now. We see so many things that are breaking down and things that want to break through. I just think it's an amazing, exciting time to be not just alive, but to be a woman and to be in this industry of education, empowerment, in a way that, I mean, it takes all of us. We all have to show up and do our part. Our healing impacts the healing of the world. Our wisdom allows and gives permission for other women to step into their wisdom too. And that's what I think is so beautiful. Well, it's like you said,
you're not enlightened unless everybody's enlightened. Right. And it's really packed into that to that message. Like it packs the punch, right?
And we're all going to find it in different paths and in different ways down different avenues. And so this idea, this patriarchal model and message that I was in early on in personal development, which is, you know, rah, 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 do what I do to get what I got and walk across the hot coals and you too will get $1 million. And I remember coming home from the workshop and being like, looking around like, well, why didn't it work?
Right.
Because it doesn't work that way.
Correct.
And that's not the way that we're going to bring our world back together and heal.
Yeah, I like to always say you can't arm wrestle the universe to get your way. You're just not going to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're never going to win. And it's funny that we say the thing about, you know, the enlightenment, you know, you being enlightened isn't going to happen unless everybody's enlightened. And I was saying to someone earlier today, in fact, she was talking about her inability to let the light shine on her, that she is somebody who always shines the light on others. She wants her chance to have the light shine on her if she can get to that place. And I said, well, in fact, it's less about, or we can consider it being less about someone shining a light on you or you shining a light on somebody else, because that's either egoic or altruistic. It's actually about you shine your light, let them shine theirs, and then we can all bask in this beautiful glow together.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah. And, you know, unfortunately, and I feel like I had to come to this awareness for me, I didn't realize that I was a prime candidate for unconsciously saying to other people, oh, just give me your shadow. I'll hold it. You don't need to worry about your shadow. And I was so bogged down with everybody's shadows, I couldn't see their light or find my own. That's really what I think led to my breakdown. Was I really was carrying, I've been doing it my entire life since I was a child. And so this ability to wake up and go, wait a minute, that's your stuff. This is me, that's you. And you can hold your own and I can hold my own. I don't have to do your work for you. And so I think there's a lot of codependency that we grow up with as women, especially in addictive and abusive and really dysfunctional homes. And it's not.
Absolutely. I too am a shadow carrier for sure. And because it's familiar, right? Attachment theory, I will find it everywhere and I will call it in. And I am definitely the person that is carrying your shadow and then just shining light on you.
Yeah.
So that I'll hold the shadow and you shine, right?
Yeah.
It's a massive pivot to emerge from that. And it's no wonder that it took a breakdown to do it. But it reminds me when we talk about like a breakdown or things breaking apart, it really reminds me of that kintsugi method, that Asian method of the broken bowl. Yeah. And using the golden glue, the seams of gold to piece it back together to make this once considered broken pottery one of the most gorgeous and a completely unique work of art that could never be replicated. Yeah. It's 10 times more beautiful once it's been glued back together than it was when it was original and quote unquote perfect before it got broken. Yeah. It's really quite the analogy.
I've got one literally, I can't get up and go to it right this second, but it's right there on the other side of the screen if the viewers were here in the office. I've got a bowl sitting there with money from all over the world. When I travel, I bring back my change and my dollars and drop it in there. It's my little abundance bowl, but it's so true. And I love that I've been able to do my archaeological dig is what I call it. I love that like you said, all the pieces were laying around me. It took me years of, learning about who I was as an individual, my behaviors, my environment, my aspiration, my mindset, really studying narrative coaching and integrative development. So what I did in that 10-year period was I did 10 different coaching certifications over a decade because I just... You
and I both. Yeah. Here we are.
Yeah, I just went deep into it. And then it's funny because now after writing my second book, I went, I think I'm just going to stop everything. I'm going to write a children's book. I'm going to enjoy my life. Like you just said, I want to let my light shine. I want to fearlessly forge my own joy-filled life. And I love what I do. And I thought, it's not about me. I remember a couple of years ago, and Chase knows this, there was this big guy who launched, the Eckhart Tolle and Marianne Williams and all this stuff. He invited me to be in a mastermind group. And I kept hearing, we've got to see more of your face and more of your body to sell you. And I went, you're getting me to do the very thing I'm trying to get people to stop doing. I can't do that to sell the work to get away from doing that. And I love the packaging. I love all of our own packagings, but I thought, I just want to know what it's like to just live life and just be comfortable in my skin. And isn't that what we all want?
Yes.
Yes, it's
deep
that
down
simple.
it is.
Yeah.
Deep down it is.
And our soul knows that's what we want because that's who we really are. It already feels
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Well, I mean, I'm curious because we are at the point when we would look forward on the timeline. And is that the vision for the future? I mean, obviously the vision for the future is what you just stated, which is really living a life that feels congruent with who I really am, what I really want to create. Maybe it does involve a children's book. I don't know. But looking forward and looking on the horizon, future focusing, what's down the line for you?
yeah, that's a great question. And, I was in that question for a solid year last year. And I was like, what am I doing all this for? I mean, the podcast, the book, the coaching, literally I would work all day and create content and do all these great things and help people in business and help people with coaching. And I'm like, but is this it? And there was just something that kept going, what is next? I mean, I'm not interested in being an influencer. I've never wanted to be an influencer. I didn't want the brand to be about me. And I really checked in with myself and I thought, well, is that a limiting belief? Is something holding me back? Is there something wrong with me? And this little voice just kept saying, no, that's not where you're not stopping here. And so then what's next for me is, it's been about 4 or 5 months now. An organization reached out to me called the Inner Work Center. And I know them. I've done a lot of work with them over the years, just in my own inner work. And their executive director was retiring and they said, hey, we got this amazing organization. We've got 30 facilitators doing all this great stuff just like you. And they've been around for 30 years as a nonprofit here in Richmond, Virginia. And they said, we're looking for somebody to help us create content, go digital, really get on the bigger playing field and teach our facilitators to create content. And the more they kept talking, that's when, like you said, you can't arm wrestle the universe. This knowingness just came over my whole body, felt it and went, this is where I'm supposed to go because
bingo,
I can now help 30 plus facilitators learn to do what I did. Imagine the reach. And then because I'd built all this online stuff and all this content, I mean, if you came to me and said, how do I write a book? How do I publish a book? How do I create a podcast? Everything. I've learned it all. And yes, Chase, you did teach me all the podcast stuff because he produced mine as well. And, but I learned, I kept learning. I'm like, why am I learning and spending all my time and energy building all of this? And then when this organization called, I just knew it. And I knew because I had learned to do the embodiment work, my logic would have said that's a terrible idea. But my body said, oh my gosh, yes, 1,000 times, yes. And
it's your best compass.
Yes.
Your body's your best compass. Absolutely.
Yes. And so, so the project I'm on now is I've been really helping this organization turn things around and revamp everything. And we just finished building the online platform to take all of their content and put it on a digital platform that people could access. And because it's a nonprofit and we deal with a lot of sponsorships and a lot of wonderful donors, we're going to be able to make stuff affordable and available to people all over the world. And it was like, I sat back and I went, I would have never dreamed that dream. That was not even in my logical brain because I was so focused on me. But thankfully, my soul kept going, there's something else. Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going. Keep going. That's why so many people, it's like they manifest or they write a living vision. And it's that, a lot of people say always add at the end or something better.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I want this or something better that I can't even in my wildest dreams imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really the direction I'm headed in. And I'm still doing my own content. Like I said, I just wrote my second book. A lot of people ask me, my first book was titled Shut Up and Sit, Finding Silence and All the Life-Changing Magic that comes with it. Was not my title choice. The woman who helped me, the editor, she goes, all you've said, she goes, I searched the manuscript. The most frequent phrase you've said in the entire process of me writing your book was shut up and sit. Because that was the narrative I kept saying, just shut up and sit, Yetta, just shut up and sit. And I had to learn to contain and hold and be with all of me. And then I had, some people say, well, okay, once you learn to shut up and sit and you learned how to do all this behavioral change, well, then what did you do? And I thought, well, yeah, what was the second story? And I said, well, that was when I really started to learn enough already. Just enough already. I'm not doing anything else. No more certifications, no more books, no more classes, no more gurus. I am going to stop and just go, enough. Enough is already
And
here.
I am enough already.
Exactly.
So enough already because I'm enough already.
And then it got to the place of enoughness, of enough creating content, enough talking about Yetta. I was just getting over it. I was so over it. And so this next phase to be of service, and I think Oprah was the one I heard this from probably first, and then maybe Deepak, but that question of how can I be of service to something greater than myself? And I just kept asking and asking, and I didn't know the answer, and I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And living the question allowed it to show up. And then it was like my body just relaxed and just said, we're doing this. We're going in this direction. So I'm excited about helping people get out there with their content and their product, because they play a part in the wisdom traditions and in helping people find their own wisdom too. It's like the secret's in all of us.
Enlighten others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, there is a children's book on the horizon too that I wrote.
Good. Yes.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. But
I would love to. I would love a children's book. Shut up and sit.
Well, it's actually funny. The children's book that I did was a story my grandfather used to tell me that is about a 3-legged dog named Billy Badog Bagby. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it was and the only saving grace of my entire childhood was my grandfather would come pick me up when things got really bad at home and take me to his farm. And at night he would tuck me in and he would tell me a story about Billy Badog Bagby. And I never knew it was a 3-legged, he just made it up. He was super creative, and he would tell me about this 3-legged creature in the woods. And, and so I would just, Papa, tell me more. And so as I did all of this work and I got to that enough already, I actually brought the memory of enough already up in that book. And so I said, I brought up this story about Billy Badog Bagby. And I thought, God, isn't it crazy after all this stuff we learn, it really just comes back to imagination, creativity, and play. And I thought that's the one story that got me through the hardest things in my life was I would just close my eyes and imagine the stories of this little girl and this friend that she made in the woods and it just went, maybe Einstein was right. Maybe we just need more imagination and more fairy tales. Forget all that other stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's what's coming.
Circle around to our last question.
Oh, I'm so excited.
This is what I ask everybody on the podcast. This is how we always wrap. And the question is, if you had a mirror in front of you right now, which maybe you do because you're on a screen. I don't know if you can see your own reflection, but if you had a mirror in front of you right now, and you got to have your look at me now moment, your moment to acknowledge yourself, to validate yourself, to remove all of that external gaze and have a quiet moment between you and you to say, look at me now with nothing but love in your heart, unconditional love in your heart and in your body. What is it that you would say to yourself?
I don't know if I'd say anything. The first thing that came to mind when you said that was that I would just do the deepest bow. Maybe I would say something. I would do the deepest bow and I would say, I love you.
Yeah, one of my greatest mentors, Dr. DeMartini, always says when we're in a space of true gratitude, the only words are thank you, I love you. And I believe that to be true. So deep bow back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending this time and sharing your story and sharing your wisdom and your sense of humor, and absolutely everything about you is just so magnificent. I'm honored that you joined me. Thank you so much.
Well, and yes, deep bow to you and thank you, and to the entire team that's helping you over there on the West Coast. I wish I could have been with you guys in person. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. But before we leave, I want, besides your book, which we've mentioned and we'll put in the show notes, where can people find you? We'll put this in the show notes too.
Yeah, so you just go to Sit with Yetta. It's Yedda, sitwithyetta.com. Everything's on the website. The books are all on Amazon, so you can just do Shut Up and Sit Yetta. you can do enough already, Yetta. Make sure you put my name because, there's more books out there with same titles. It's all out there. And if you can't find any of that, I'm pretty, you can search me. Just Google Yedda Stancil and, all kinds of stuff will come up. So yeah, that's how to find me.
Appreciate you, Yetta. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Enjoy that sunny weather out there on the West Coast, and give Chase a big hug for me and tell him I said hi.
Will do.
The Pod
Thank
Daddy.
you.
Oh my gosh, he's never going to live
Daddy.
that one down. I got that one. You hear that? Pod Daddy, Chase.
I swear, it's like a movement.
He's the best.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Yetta. Have a great night.
All right, you too.
And
Take care. See
everybody
you soon.
watching.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. To everybody watching, thank you so much. And that's another episode, and we're out. Join us for Look at Me Now, wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to share, like, and subscribe.